Welcome, listeners, to A Writer's Life. I'm your host, Heike Bohm, the author of the novel Secrets in the Shadows. A Writer's Life is a place where I'll be in conversation with fellow writers. We'll discuss all things writing. They'll read from their latest works, and we'll explore what happens beyond the pen in A Writer's Life. It's gonna be a page turner. I just know it. Pull up a chair and join us. I'm recording on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation.
There's a character who has a tongue transplant, and ends up, it doesn't work out too well, and he can't speak, and his words come out very strangely, and he's frustrated, and he goes to a speech therapist, but then he sounds like the speech therapist, who is this kind of uppity East Coast American accent.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of A Writer's Life. Today I'll be in conversation with Barbara Black, and I'm just going to dive right in. Hello, Barbara, and welcome back to A Writer's Life.
Thank you.
Let's kick off by diving into some nostalgic territory. What was one of your favorite childhood vacations with your family, and what made it stand out as memorable to you?
We used to go to the Okanagan, to West Bank, and I just loved it there because we stayed I thought this was very special. We used to tent, but when we were a bit older, we stayed in the little cabanas. I don't even think those exist anymore generally. And it was right by the lake. There was a playground, and I just loved being there. It had one memory that sticks with me. It had a huge sort of like merry-go-round. It was just massive. Usually they're pretty small, but it was massive, like this giant industrial disc. Maybe that's actually what it was. And you could fit tons of kids on it. So there'd be like about, 10, 12 kids on it all at the same time, just, running along with it, jumping on it, jumping off it. That was just a kind of a weird thing that I'd never seen anywhere else since. And I loved it. And so I guess those really stuck with me, those memories. Okanagan was always nice and hot, and I remember we would be driving in the car, and there would be a certain point where I could smell the hot pine trees, and I loved that. That was like, oh, we're there, we're here now, we're in the Okanagan.
Barbara, that was wonderful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
On to your latest accomplishment, your new book, Little Fortified Stories. No doubt it is a page turner. Published by Caitlin Press in 2024, out in stores now. You have a lot of short stories in there on microfiction. Could you enlighten us on what microfiction is and what inspired this captivating collection?
Well, microfiction is 300 words and under, generally. There's some people describe it as slightly more or slightly less, but generally it's 300 words and under. And so there are some pieces in my collection that are that short. And when they're bigger than 300, they're generally called flash fiction. And so I have a lot of those. And the flash fiction is usually from 300 to about 1,000 to 1,500 words. So I have micros and I have flash in there, and I also have sort of hybrids. I have some dialogues. I have some list stories. That's the great thing about this kind of short fiction, is what I call it. Is it's experimental. There are rules. There's sometimes people stick to the rules about story arcs. Even the smallest change at the end is required, and many of my stories are like that, and some of them aren't. So I like it for that experimental quality it has. And you asked about how it came about.
Mhm.
How it came about was that I was in Lisbon for a literary workshop with Disquiet, and I went to the Port Center, which was way up on the hill, but still in the main part of the city. And I was sampling ports, and I was sitting there, and I had a line, a character voice come into my head. And I had this tiny book that they'd given us as a complimentary thing. And I thought, God, this tiny book, what am I? I'm never going to use it. But that's all I had. So I wrote in it a very, very short story. And then when I looked at it, I went, oh, this story has like the quality of the port in it. It had, it was talking about dark fruit and colors like garnet. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. And so on my
Yeah.
off time during the workshop, I would go up there and test. I had white port, which is beautiful. I didn't even know there was such thing. And
Uh,
started writing more stories based around those fortified drinks, which is what port is. And when I got home, I decided to continue it, and I added more spirits, being gin and rum and scotch, and was doing the little
That's
sipping. I
great.
wasn't, getting drunk while I was doing it, drunk on words maybe. So I just like tiny sips, and then I would just wait for um, either a character voice or just a sentence would come into my head that was just, I knew it was perfect. And then I would just write off that. So I have a lot of other spirits in the collection. And once I kind of was done with that concept, I also added ekphrastic works, which are writings from visual art or photography, and a couple of other sections, one on my ancestry. So that's how it all started.
I haven't read all of it, but what I have read, I really enjoyed.
Oh, good,
So
good.
kudos to you. Your book cover, super creative. Can you share a bit about its creation and significance?
It's a story in the section called Ancestral Fabrications. And what that is, it's stories based around my ancestry, but because the records are a bit slim, I have fictionized many of them. Some are based on actual true things, and in fact, there's a funny one that sounds like I made it up, but it isn't. One that my grandmother's mother locked her husband out of the house because he was drinking, and he had to live in the backyard in the shed. So I said, "What's actually that one's actually true?" They thought I had made it up. So one of the stories in there is called the Jaeger Family Theater. And so this collage is based on that story. And it's about a girl who's in a family called the Jaeger family, which is my Swedish side. My Nana's original name was Johansson, but her father or grandfather changed it because they were Johanssons and there were like, 2 million Johanssons in Sweden. So he changed the name to Jaeger. And the story is about a girl in the Jaeger family. It's a little bit surreal. A lot of my stories are a little pushed a little bit out of reality. And she is doing a ritual that they do in the family where they're on a sort of a stage and they have a song they've been given. And her song is from the Jaeger clan. And the Jaeger's also a bird of the North. And so she has a song that she sings. It starts with Kriya, which is like the sound of the Jaeger. And so in this picture, this is her sort of performing that rite and calling out, sorry, calling out that song. And she talks about her family. It's narrated by this girl. So that is how it came about.
And you designed that. You put it together
Yes, I
as a
did. Yeah.
collage.
It's got
Nice.
bits of this and bits of that from magazines, and the frame is an actual metal frame that I collaged on top of.
It's fabulous. I loved it. It was well done. In one of your blog posts, you mentioned your childhood experience with temporary topographical amnesia. Could you elaborate on that intriguing aspect of your past?
Well, I didn't even know it was a thing and that it had a name until I was an adult. When I was a kid, in that blog, I'll just explain it since people haven't read it. In that blog, I talked about when I was quite little, probably even like 6 or 7. I remember walking to school, and suddenly the street I was on, which was right where my house was, and it was very close by, I knew it well, everything kind of went blank. All the things were there visually, but they had no meaning. They had no memory. Um, I didn't really know where I was. It's like I lost my, like an amnesia episode. And everything just looked generic. It was a generic street. It was a generic house. And it doesn't last very long, but when you're in it, it seems like it's lasting a long time. And I would just keep walking, and then, maybe half a block, it would all come back in. And as an adult, I don't get it when I'm walking, but I still get it when I'm driving. And it's usually a straight street, and it's usually in the same places. There's a place that I drive that goes toward UVic, University of Victoria, and I often get it there. And I think I'm at UBC because I used to go to UBC, and I think, and you just last a few seconds. If I turn left and turn right with my head, it sort of breaks it out, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I know where I am. I'm at. And it doesn't happen very often. It may be because I overthink too. I'm thinking too much while I drive. I was like that as a kid. I even wrote a little story that said, "Oh, I guess I was thinking too much." It was like grade 2 or something. So that's what that syndrome is all about.
How did you find out about it?
I don't know. I think I typed in what the symptoms of it were, and it came up as an actual thing. And that's how I discovered it. It's kind of interesting in a way to have had that experience, because you realize that everything you do and see is based in memory, or it's making a memory. And when you strip all of that out, it's sort of frightening, but it's also interesting because now you know that everything has meaning.
Wow, that was interesting. Let's shift gears now into your journey as a writer, from your humble beginnings to where you find yourself now.
I started writing probably in high school. I did like writing stories. And I always got remarks from the teacher, "Oh, your story was very good." And I look at them and I go, "Really? The other ones must have been really bad." But I was imaginative. I always had a good sense of language. And I do remember writing a story in grade 3. We were assigned to write a story, and we had a few days to do it, and I did it right away, of course, and she thought it was great, so she posted it. And when the whole assignment was finished and people put their stories up, I think I read it out loud to the class too, and everyone had their stories up, and a lot of them sounded like my story. I thought that was, well, I guess it was flattering. So, story writing. And then when I went to high school, I had these binders, the coiled binders, the 8 by 11. And I was, you're a teenager, so you're writing all your thoughts and your secrets. And I was experimenting with language a lot, but mostly in sort of gobbledygook, like just making sounds. But I did write in it a lot, and I got bored in class, so I would be writing in it sometimes, and the teacher didn't know, except for once. in my French class, I was writing, and I had my head down, and the class kind of went silent, and the teacher said, Barbara, what are you doing?
Mm.
And I just said, oh, I'm writing in my journal. And she said, well, can you put it away now? So I wrote into university with those and got a little bit more sophisticated with what I was doing, trying to write, short stories.
Wow.
And then the writing just went away as a personal activity. And but all the jobs I had were writing. Um, I worked at an ecology center and I wrote all the text there. And I had all contract. I was mostly a freelancer. I worked at a newspaper and then I
Nice.
was freelancer and I did anything. I did government contracts, but it wasn't creative writing. I was a book reviewer and I was a theater reviewer, but I wasn't writing in my spare time because it was my job. So years went past, and in age 40, I thought, I kind of feel like I have a book in me.
Nice. Nice.
And I did, but it took another several years for that to happen. In my 50s, I started writing, and it's been great. It doesn't pay as well as, as professional writing, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. And here I am now. I have one book out and one coming out.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You write poetry as well, and you have been published in quite a few anthologies, correct?
Yeah, I do write poetry. It's harder for me, but I do write poetry as well. And I'm in quite a few anthologies for that. And then more lately, I've been doing entering flash fiction contests and yeah, and doing well there.
Were there any standout moments or challenges you encountered while penning this collection?
Yes,
Ooh,
funny you should ask.
spill the beans,
I
spill the beans.
I will. Well, when the music from a Strange Planet had been out and done well, my publisher said, do you have something else, going? I said, well, I have this manuscript, it's like, short fiction, and it's kind of, I don't know, two-thirds done or one-third done. And she goes, okay, great, I'll take it. I said, well, oh, okay. and and then I immediately got writer's block, like within months. And I've never had that my entire life. And it was a lot of people told me that that's common when you put out a book and you might need a rest period. So they were very great. The publisher was very good. And she said she did, she kept saying, okay, just take it easy. And so that was a serious struggle with I tried to make myself write for a while and I tried different ways and then I just decided I'm just going to leave myself alone, and who knows what processes might be going on while I'll be doing other creative things. I went and looked at art, and I still kept
Uh-huh.
art and writing in my life, but I just wasn't doing it. And I actually have a story in my collection, those with the loss of their lexicon, and it's about me. And I didn't know when I started writing it. I was listening to a piece of music, actually, which was a very haunting kind of music in a different language. And I wrote this story, and it's about a woman who stands in the town
Yeah.
square against a brick wall, and she sings to people passing by. But I noticed I walked past, or the narrator, who actually is me, I didn't know that at the time, um, hears the narrator walks by and hears that she is singing my songs. And by my songs, really, I mean my words. And I hear her doing that. And finally, I ask her why. And she says, oh, because when you walk by, I see your words behind you and they want to be sung. And so I sing them for you. That story just came out of my subconscious. I didn't really know what was going on when I wrote it, and then I went, "Oh, oh, that's really neat." Yeah,
Fabulous. You got to just love those moments, right? When you're reflecting, and the clarity of that is so
yeah.
illuminating.
I do find there's a lot of subconscious content while I'm writing a book. The first book was the same. You write it, and then I look at it. This one, the little Fortified Stories, there's quite a few themes that I didn't really intentionally put there, but they are there. There's climate change. There's, you'll find out later when I read Mothers and Daughters, and it's just great how those come into your work. It's what you're working on a different level when you write, and it does leak in for me. It does anyway.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to my next question. Are there particular themes or subjects that consistently captivate you, or perhaps ones you consciously avoid?
Ones I consciously avoid. That I don't know. But I do have themes of, well, as I mentioned, mothers and daughters. I have a piece that's called that I'll read. And I have a dream that I actually had about my mother being in our old house and coming there. And there's another one that has my mother in it. It's a very strange one. It's more about a mouth that's speaking. That one's very dark, not dark, but it's lyrical dark. And I have a few about that address climate change in an oblique way, not in an obvious way. I have one where I'm writing about an
Yeah.
oyster catcher, which I have here near my house down by the ocean, and how it's sitting on a rock, but the tide is coming up, and I know that it will be inundated soon. And I'm at the same time thinking about, oh, how high is the sea going to go when the climate changes? Because I live very close to to the ocean, only half a block, and so that's a sort of subconscious concern for me. So there's another story I wrote in Sardinia when I was sitting up on a hill, and there were just these beautiful, fragrant bushes in bloom, and I did hardly saw any bees. And I thought that was unusual, or maybe it wasn't, but to me, I know that they are declining insects. And so there's a story, a man and his daughter, and they have an area they sequestered where they're trying to save all these insects and plants because they're disappearing in the world. So that's another thing. Artists, creativity, I think that comes in a lot. And language, I seem to be I wonder why, I'm very interested in language. And I have one about how language came about. That's a very cheeky story. And I have another where a woman she's kind of frozen for some reason, and a strange figure comes to her and offers her something that looks like tongues, which she puts in her mouth. And this also sounds like writer's block as well. And in that one, the snow around her starts to melt, and she feels words coming from her below in her body and coming up. So that's in several stories. There's language. Oh, there's a character who has a tongue transplant, and ends up it doesn't work out too well, and he can't speak, and his words come out very strangely, and he's frustrated, and he goes to a speech therapist, but then he sounds like the speech therapist who is this kind of uppity East Coast American accent. So he gives up and he trades his. I'm telling in a way these stories, but that's okay. People will forget. He trades his tongue. He moves to the wilderness because he's embarrassed, and he trades his tongue with uh, another wild animal. A wild animal, I'll just say, not so I don't reveal everything. And then he just doesn't speak anymore, and that animal has his tongue. So, yeah, my fevered brain.
That's awesome. I love it. Can you discuss any specific literary or philosophical influences that have shaped your exploration of the human condition and the natural world in your writing?
Oh my goodness. I won't be able to think of the authors' names right now, but lately I've read two books about plants and plants' sentience. One of them was about plants' sentience, not, that they can like perceive things, but they can feel things that you'd be surprised. And another one was about plants
Mhm.
helping to solve crimes. They do that with insects, but they can do it with plants now too. What was growing there, or what's unusual that's growing there that shouldn't be growing there, and how that's related to there being a crime or someone buried. Or so I found that totally fascinating. I love plants. I'm a gardener. Those were great. And influence from what actually I'd like to mention a book I just bought yesterday at one of those books. And it is so fascinating. It's called The Work
Okay.
of Art, and it's by Adam Moss. And what it is, it's all about the creative process. And I'm already
Right,
feel
right.
really fascinated by this book. It's super thick. It's about that thick. And he interviews artists and writers, musicians, playwrights about their creative process, and it's really fascinating. And it kind of makes me validifies, how I approach things. Because sometimes I see advice to writers, you know, do this and write out a outline and I don't work that way. I'm a very instinctual. Often I hear things in my head and then write them down, and it's just fascinating to see the process people go through. As I read one about a visual artist who had to design a giant sculpture out of sugar for a sugar factory, and she just didn't know where to go. And she spent, I don't know, quite a few months just thinking about what is sugar, what does it do, what are the history. There's the slavery, and she ended up with a bust of a almost sphinx-like bust made out of sugar. I forget how the Sphinx thing came into it. She got to there through this whole convoluted but interesting process of drawing and reading about sugar. And I just yeah, it's the most fascinating book. Very, very good. I recommend it. And I have only read about four of the interviews so far. There was another one. Uh, there was another one about a woman who had her third miscarriage, an artist as well. And she had a painting where she was bending down and tending to a plant because that's what she did after her miscarriage. She went back to touching plants. And what the painting, she realized what it really was she was bending down to a baby. She finally realized that that's what the painting should be. So I've just found that I'm not writing right now because I just put the book out. So I like reading about those kind of processes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I find it really interesting too. Last year, I started teaching online writing courses, and I find it so fascinating with all the different writers that I'm guiding, their processes. And they're so different. And there isn't, you got to do it this way or that way. You really want to be open to exploring how you want to express yourself. And each piece that you write has its own way of wanting to be written or told. Yeah, just be open. It's not just one formula. As humans, we are creative. So allow that to unleash, open up to your own creativity. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Yes, I definitely go by that I don't want to say rule, that idea. Yeah. That's what I did in this for this book. And I one thing that's kind of cool is
Hmm.
that when you get stuck, you can also try the opposite. Like if you're kind of all over the place and you don't you haven't found the way in to that piece of writing, using a structure, which they do a lot
Mhm.
there's a lot of prompts in flash fiction and microfictions, the using prompts like just verbal prompts or the ekphrastic art
Uh,
ones. But also there's structures you can try. Like I have a list story in my collection about St. Barbara, and that is because when I wrote it, I was like, this isn't, it's not working. It's not working. I can't get all these weirdnesses to go together. And then I realized, well, why don't you separate them and fragment them instead and let them contradict each other? And one will be about, a future, and one will be in the past or whatever. And it was all about Saint Barbara.
we used to celebrate her as a kid.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I didn't think people even were familiar that there was a Saint Barbara. There you go. I'm not a saint, by the way.
How do you approach the creative process in your writing, and what strategies do you employ to nurture and expand upon your ideas? And you've been talking a bit about that, but can you expand a little bit more?
Mhm. What strategies do I use? Well, when I'm writing, I do really like ekphrastic writing from art,
Hmm.
and I have a section in the collection um, that has those kind of stories. Because well, for one thing, I just love art. I'm very interested in art, and
Hmm.
it does activate
Yeah.
your brain in a different way when you're working from a visual. And I really like that. I usually do pick kind of unusual ones too, so that you know you can go somewhere maybe a bit surreal. And so that is something I really enjoy. I listen to music a lot too, and there are quite a few stories in here, whether I say it or not, in the back and the references that I wrote while I was listening to music. Um, Generally instrumental music and music that's not from my culture. That I especially am successful with that. I don't do it at home, but I do it in when I cafe write. So I have headphones on because people are talking, and I go into this envelope of sound, and that a lot comes out of that as well.
Mm.
Um, what other strategies would be, as I just was saying, structures, which are really popular in flash fiction. And you'd think, well, that's like restricting you, isn't it? But no, it's not. It's like when you write poetry and you have to write a sonnet. Sometimes having restriction makes you more creative, and because you can get lazy, not lazy, you can get sort of stuck in a rut of a certain style of writing in prose or in poetry. And when suddenly you can only write a story that, doesn't have the letter A in it, or uh, a sonnet or something, just really, really has a lot of rules about how you do it, you can come up with very interesting language or different ways to come into the story, or to different language, because you have to use different language because of that restriction. It makes you more creative. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just, oh, I can't write this on it. But it's that's very helpful too. And of course, reading others' works, that's helpful. I have certain writers I like. I like strong voices, and they are like my companions to keep me going. When I'm stuck, or just to keep the momentum going when I'm writing, especially like a manuscript.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Reflecting on your early adulthood, what's a decision you made that significantly impacted your path? And what lessons did you glean from those experience or that experience?
A
Hmm.
decision I made, one that comes to mind, was when I went to university. I had trouble deciding what I wanted to do. And not one of those people when I was, 15, I'm like, I'm going to be a writer. I never said that. I never said I'm going to be a writer. I did writing, but I never didn't think I'd be a writer or an author. So when I went to university, I started out in theater, as I loved theater. I did theater in high school and outside of high school. And I just thought,
Mm.
if I do this, I'm going to be unemployed all the time, in between jobs, which is funny because I became a freelance writer. However, at that stage, I thought, okay, I did that for 2 years. And then I thought, no, I don't think this is it. I did well in it, but then I switched to education. And I did that, and I had the worst teachers ever were when I studied education, which was very sad.
Yeah.
I was looking into special education and just regular education. And then I actually went to SFU and did 2 terms for that. And I was writing. I realized at one point that the lesson plans, I really liked writing the lesson plans.
I
Like,
love writing lesson plans. What is that? I love doing
I
that.
know, and I went, I like it more than teaching. I was doing well at the teaching, and I finally
Yeah.
told the teacher, I think I'm going to drop out. She was devastated because, of course, then she didn't have time off. But she said, "You're doing so well," and I said, "I just don't think I am meant to be a teacher."
Yeah.
And that was when I decided I was going to switch to English, and I moved to Victoria, went to UVic, and squeezed as many English courses as I could into 2 years because I'd already done 2 years of university.
Great.
And that is how long it took me to sort of feel the writer within and pursue, studying English and writing. There.
Nice. Nice. Well, great decision because it's given us as the reader great works to read. So that was a great
Oh,
decision.
well,
So
thank
thank
you.
you. What's something about you that most people wouldn't guess just by looking at you or reading your work?
Oh boy. Hmm. Just by looking at you, that they don't know that I can actually say publicly,
Yeah.
that I can admit to. Well, they might not know that I ride a motorcycle.
Okay, there we go. What kind of motorbike do you ride?
It's a Triumph Street Triple RS,
Cool.
and it's quite speedy. Well, when I'm on it, it is.
Uh-huh.
And it's beautiful around the corners. And I love it because when I ride, I'm in the physical world. There's no words. I'm not thinking, especially when you ride a motorcycle, you want to be thinking about traffic ideas,
Mhm.
but not off in your head. And I just love the physicality of it and the wind, excuse me, and the wind and everything is just more vivid
Mhm.
when you're out in the air, moving through the air, and
Mhm. And you can
really love that.
smell like
And you can smell exactly,
yeah.
exactly. You're riding and you're like, oh, farm nearby, and oh, I can smell the early cherry blossoms now, and it's you don't realize that you don't have that in a car until you do have it. When you ride the motorcycle, you're like, oh, I'm missing all this,
Yeah.
when I'm in the car.
Yeah.
That
I,
oh,
I think a lot of your senses become heightened.
hmm Yeah, and I'm hoping, well, I am going to do a motorcycle trip in August
Mhm.
in the Chilcotin. And it's partly adventure riding, which I have not done. I've just done a tiny bit of that. So it'll be gravel roads and maybe going through some streams and back roads. And yeah, looking forward to that.
Nice, nice. That sounds fun.
Hmm.
Shifting gears, no pun intended.
Wait, what was that? I didn't
Shift,
quite get that.
shifting gears,
Oh, shit.
no pun intended.
Right, right.
As a child, what was your favorite way to spend a rainy day indoors? And do you find yourself drawn to similar activities or comforts now in your adult life?
I would say probably playing piano would have been
Mm,
um, something I would do on a rainy day. And in fact, sometimes I skipped school on the day my mother went and volunteered. And I played piano like all day, almost.
No trying to get you to practice. Stop practicing and get to school.
Well, school was, I knew I could miss it because it was kind of slow for me sometimes. So I'm like, I'm just going to skip out. And that was when you could skip out. Like I was a good student, so they didn't question it. But nowadays you wouldn't get away with that, I don't think. So that's one thing I do. Now, you said a rainy day. If it weren't a rainy day, I would be outside looking at minutiae of like insects, little ants, in the stairs and projecting myself into their small worlds. And playing outside. We lived right on the edge of Lynn Canyon and it was bush. It was all bush. And so just playing in the bush was fabulous. I can't say I do that very much now. Insects, I'm still into that, especially with my garden. And piano playing, I go through phases. I have not played my poor piano for when I had like writer's block. You'd think I'd be doing it, but I almost dropped a lot of I didn't do collages. I had like a creativity breakdown, but I hope to go back to that. I was playing jazz tunes and just for myself and trying that.
Nice. Let's circle to your story, Stitching. What inspired this particular piece of storytelling?
Well, it might surprise you, but it was a memory from my 20s. I had a boyfriend who lived in Kamloops, and I went up there to visit him while I was working for the summer, and we went to his grandfather's house. This is going to seem like a very wayward way to get to it, but it will make sense. And we went to his grandfather's house, and I was not told he had a certain condition at the time. And we were sitting in the living room, and he was talking. And while he was talking, he just stopped. And what it was, narcolepsy. He had narcolepsy, but I didn't know. I found out. I said to my boyfriend after, why was he just falling asleep? He says, no, he has narcolepsy. And I don't know how. I guess I just remembered that. And that's what is happening to this woman who is sitting in her chair and stitching, and except that I don't know what happens when you fall asleep when you have narcolepsy, if you have, dreams. So, but she actually has a kind of dream, or even, I don't know if you could call it like she's actually there in the place, but of other women doing different things. And she experiences the things that they are experiencing when she's in that state, non-conscious state. I don't really know how it came about, that story, but I do know that the first character, who's is based on Virginia Woolf. The other people are not based on certain people, but I don't know how that got in there. Maybe I was reading about her, and that's how it came about. So it was sort of like a frame of a memory, and it's always stuck with me. And I was writing about it in my little writing book, and I think I even maybe tried to write a story, but it was the one about the grandpa, and it didn't work. So it became about a woman. So there you go.
Last time when we spoke, on our first time we met on the podcast, you mentioned you were collaborating with a composer in Vancouver, Katarina Gimmon, on flash fiction piece set in Victorian times. How is that project progressing?
Oh, it came together.
Yeah.
It was a challenge for me as a writer because I had never written, for opera. So it was a different approach. You need to be more simple in your words. You need to convey emotion in those simple words, and you need to know how the character might speak in a different way than the other characters. But I did get some help from Katerina too on that. and was spots where she felt, can you have more of an arc here so that she goes up to a higher level of emotion and down. And it was a real learning experience. It did get performed by the Arato Ensemble in Vancouver,
Oh, wow.
and it was not staged. It was sung on stage, but it was acted. But we didn't. It wasn't like a theater
Yeah.
or an opera setting, and it went over very well. It was very. I don't write a lot of comic things, which is funny because I'm just totally a clown in private. There's one thing people might not guess about me. I do voices. I'm goofy. So it was fun to do just this totally slapstick kind of comedy. Um, I'd like to try it again, actually. And people really did enjoy it, and the singers were great. There were four singers, and their acting was great. It was put on very. They didn't have a lot of time for rehearsal because that was just the way it was, and they were all pros, and they just blew it out of the water. It was great, and Katerina's music was great too, and she knows how to write comical music
Oh,
too.
good.
She's super talented. Yeah, she's really going up in the ranks right now in the choral world, literally world. She's all over the place. So I was very grateful to have that opportunity to work with her.
Nice. Was that videoed? Is it on the net?
Uh I can't. Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Nice. I'll Google that and maybe put a link to it.
Hmm.
Okay, here's one. How do you view the relationship between creativity and the human experience? And what do you believe is the ultimate purpose or significance of storytelling in the grand scheme of existence?
Holy cow. Wow. Um, well, I think the great thing about writing is reading, I should say, is that you can experience the lives of so many different kinds of people you may not encounter in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the incredible thing about reading is that it expands your world, whether it's fiction or whether it's nonfiction. You can expand your knowledge of ideas or people or emotions. You can see yourself in the writing, and it's a way we share our human life with each other. Writing and art. It's a way we illustrate the short time that we have here, and those people who have created those works and are gone have created those for us, and they kind of live on as well because they've painted a picture, or they've written a book, or they've made a sculpture, or et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a super important part of our human existence to be articulating or illustrating um, our experiences.
Nice.
Hmm.
Last one. Spring upon us. Are you finding solace in the garden? Any new story ideas sprouting alongside your plants?
Well, there's not much solace in the garden at the moment because I have made for myself a much too big garden. And the weather has decided to be freezing cold and rainy and unpredictable.
So true.
And I have lost some very nice plants from, I think, just the temperature ranges of having warmth and then really quite cold. And it shocked some pretty hardy plants. And just, I had giant phormiums, which are from New Zealand, these things with sort of spear-shaped leaves that are very long. And they were like the the exclamation marks of my, I had three huge ones in my garden, and they all look just awful. One may survive, and two just look very sad. So I feel sad about that
Yeah.
because it kind of, well, because it ruined my design and just wow, they were, plants are really tough. They're way tougher than we are because they're just sitting there and they have to, adapt to the weather and insects and infestations and all that. So I have a great respect for plants.
Uh-huh.
Um, and but I still love doing it. It's like the motorcycling, only not as fast. Um, in the sense that when I'm out there, my brain turns off.
Yeah.
It really does. It's physical and it's meditative if no one's mowing their lawn at the time. And it's quite I'm a kind of autodidact and I love learning about things. So I love identifying the native bees that I have and wasps, and I love knowing what the plants are and what conditions they like and where they're from originally. The Formiums being from New Zealand, they kind of just didn't do well with that super cold weather we had, and
Hmm.
that did them in. Um, so it's like my little Eden back there, with a little bit too much work attached to it, but I'm going to go at it no matter what. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You ever talk to your plants?
All the time.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I do. I'm especially the ones that are struggling right now. I like put my hand on them. I'm like, oh, come on, maybe you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I tell him, yes. And I'm out there in my pajamas, bending over, looking at the ground, going, okay, where are the little seeds? Where are you? And I'm thinking, oh my God, what are the neighbors thinking? I'm staring at the ground for hours.
I have the
Siblings.
neighbor thing too. I think they know me well enough now that I talk to myself while I'm working too. I'm like, oh, maybe I should put that there. And where's the spade? They're like, oh, she's out there again.
So true, so true. On that note, would you like to read a piece from your new collection?
Yes, I would. I would love to.
Wonderful.
Uh, the story I'm going to read uh, has the title of Mothers and Daughters. And as we already talked about in the interview here, that is one of the themes, several themes in my book, an unintentional theme, as we were saying, that just fascinates me how these things come up from your unconscious when you're writing, or you're processing old memories or traumas or whatever. They kind of seep into your words sometimes. But generally, when that happens, the results are really good because it comes from a very deep, kind of authentic place, I think. Um, so this work is, speaking of structures, it's a series of scenes in 5 parts, all about mothers and daughters. And here it is, Mothers and Daughters. 1. I walked into a landscape of dry hills. Up a very long ladder, which extended into the sky, was a woman with her head inside a cloud. She was waving a net made of kerchiefs and old underpants. What are you doing? There's nothing up there to see, I called up. Exactly what my daughter would say, she answered. I'm catching moths for their powdery dust. Up here it's night. Once this net is full, I'll scatter the dust over her bed while she sleeps to seal dreams into the bedclothes. Without dreams, we're just sleeping animals. Are they good dreams? That's up to the moths. 2. She startled me. The woman with sprouts in her chin and hair rolled up in tin can rollers. Dressed in coveralls, she was laying out a dirt plot with traps constructed of broken tools and appliances. Rows of sharp metal teeth and mashed gears glinted in the sun. Don't bother me, she barked as I opened my mouth to speak. I watched her roaming up and down the rows as if inspecting ranks of soldiers. She'll step into every one of these, that daughter. But why? I asked, horrified. Because I set them. I know her. 3. There was a clothesline. A woman with breasts as enormous as bread loaves was hanging up babies by their diapers. Babies chubby and wrinkly, thin and wizened, late born and too early born, pinkish and bluish, brown-eyed, hazel-eyed, and green-eyed, bobbed up and down in their diaper slings each time she pushed the clothesline out. "Hello," I called, coming up the path of wildflowers. "That's a lovely collection you have there." "Thank you," she answered, with a voice as warm as milk. "Are they all yours?" "Oh, no, they're not mine. These are all the babies my daughter could have in her lifetime, but never will." "Never? How do you know that?" "Because I'm a mother. Still, I'll take care of them all, these little possibilities." She plucked one from the basket, pegged it up in its diaper, and whisked it down the line. 4. Striding in the distance, a woman dressed in a cap threaded with dangling bones. I picked up my pace to catch her. "Who are you?" she asked. "Oh, nobody." "Are you somebody's daughter?" She eyed me sideways. "Yes." "Then you are somebody," she said. A gust of wind threw her hair up vertically. Her cape alternately filled with air, then deflated, as if her clothing were breathing. "Why are you wearing those?" I pointed at her cape. "These are the bones of daughters who died before their mothers. As I walk, their voices are heard through the clashing of bone, heard by mothers alone." I told her that it seemed a poetic type of remembrance. "Sometimes," she said, "some mothers hear it as music. Others feel the voices in their own bones as the most excruciating cellular pain, but still they want to hear it." 5. A stunning lake high in the mountains, clear and depthless, a bowl of blue. On the slope, my mother stood, tossing small stones one at a time into the water. "Mum," I greeted her. Oddly, we did not embrace. This was not a reunion. "What are you doing here?" "I'm throwing rocks." "You never did that before." "It's just what is done here," she replied. "Each stone is a secret a mother was not able to tell her daughter." "Have you thrown in yours?" "Yes, just now." We stood overlooking the lake, the fathomless blue of her eyes averted from me. The rings traveled concentrically, ever wider, ever weaker, like a spoken word fading into inaudibility.
Thank you, Barbara, for sharing your remarkable insights and creativity with us.
Thank you.
For those who revel in highly imaginative prose that explores themes of interconnectedness and the subconscious, Barbara Black's Little Fortified Stories is an absolute must-read. Thank you again, Barbara, and best wishes with your ongoing literary endeavors.
Thank you so much, Heike. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you would like more information about Barbara Black, please check out her website at www.barbarablack.ca. And if you would like more information about her books and where to buy them, check the links below or take a look at your local bookstores. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to A Writer's Life? And if you want more information about myself and my novel Secrets in the Shadows, visit my website at www.heigebohm.ca. For a kinder world. take care of each other. Have you ever dreamt of being a writer? Have you wanted to write your memoir or that amazing story you've been longing to see in print? Now's the perfect time to start. At Crow Story House, I offer online guided writing workshops designed to help you explore and learn the craft of writing. You don't need any prior writing skills to begin, just a passion for storytelling and a desire to learn. These workshops provide a supportive community and expert guidance to help you turn your writing dreams into a reality. So why wait? Embrace the moment and take the first step on your writing journey with me. For more information, visit crowstoryhouse.com. Until next time, remember, your stories matter, your life has meaning, and you have value.